hello, everyone. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Welcome to our CentreCourt MBA Admissions Festival. We have 4 terrific business schools with 4 great MBA programs to talk to and explore during this session at Notre Dame, at UC Irvine, at the University of Rochester, and at the University of South Carolina. I'll introduce each of our panelists first before we begin our discussion. Let me introduce first at UC Irvine's Mirage School of Business, Lindsay Haberman, who's Associate Director of MBA Recruitment. At Notre Dame, Mendoza College of Business, Maria Stutzman Marquez. Is that how I pronounce your last name, Marquez?
You know, it's Marcus.
Marcus. Okay.
Yes.
It should be M-A-R-C-U-S for me.
I'll spell it phonetically next time.
Easy. Wonderfully exotic. I love the name. Maria is Director of Admissions of the Mendoza College of Business. At the University of Rochester, Simon Business School, we have Julie Sadwick, the Director of Recruitment. And at the University of South Carolina, Moore School of Business, we have Jennifer. Is it Nin? N-I-N-H?
It is, Nin.
I got that one right. Jennifer is Managing Director of Admissions at the Darla Moore School, which, as everyone knows, is really the international MBA program in the group and has long held that distinction in the landscape of business schools. Let's first go to some basic stuff. Like, people who are new to this field may not know about your school's mission, values, reputation, and let's just give them an overview of your school and your MBA program. Maria, let's start with you at Notre Dame.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for having us here. It's so nice to be surrounded by great colleagues as well. So at the University of Notre Dame, I'm going to go way back in its inception in 1842. It was founded by a Catholic priest out of France who basically came and proclaimed that this school in 1842 would be a powerful force for good in the world. And so when we think about that, statement at that time, and, we've only been a business school for about the last 100 years, and even our business school is aligned with that mission. And so Father O'Hara, who founded the business school, basically said that the primary function of commerce was to service mankind. And so that business code of ethics that really is based on universal principles, he believed that if those principles were then followed, that commerce could actually advance civilization. So that's the history and the tradition of the University of Notre Dame in Mendoza. And one thing that I would say, as a mission of the school, we have a Catholic identity. And so we like to talk about it as the little c in Catholic, which is really based on universal human values, such as like intrinsic human dignity, respect, and solidarity. And so in that, we really want to grow the good in business in order to improve the human condition and this ever-changing world, and in this modern era with so many complex issues. And we hope that our students will leave our program as change agents, right, in fields of finance and consulting and tech. And I'm really excited because I see higher education and business schools really shifting so much to really paying attention to how we are impacting the world. So that's who we are in terms of our mission and values.
And I have to say, this generation of students, graduate and undergrad, are very keen on doing something that's positive for society and the world, probably greater than any other generation in our lifetime.
Yes.
Let's do the deep dive on UC Irvine's Mirage School of Business, sorry. In California, no less.
In California, here we are. Yeah, sunny California, Orange County to be specific, kind of right in between LA and San Diego. So yeah, that's always a positive, our location, 100%. So for really the Mirage School, I mean, it's definitely, we're our leadership is, digitally driven. We're a leadership for a digitally driven, world. That is our tagline. Really focused on preparing leaders to kind of go out and be these change agents in this ever-changing digital landscape that is happening across multiple industries. I mean, every industry has been affected in some way. And so we have really taken the forefront of kind of equipping our students with the tools necessary to go out and be these change agents in these companies and kind of lead them to the next step, whatever that is. We have a number of different programs at the school. I definitely represent our full-time MBA, but we have a part-time MBA, executive MBA, a number of specialty masters, business analytics, finance, accounting, our newest one, innovation and entrepreneurship, another really big focus of the school, kind of where we are located. We're in that kind of tech hub and very startup driven environment in Irvine. And so again, kind of goes in with our brand and kind of goes in with what we are trying to do as a school. But yeah, I mean, definitely, a lot of great opportunities in California. Our students are looking at jobs in the Bay Area, LA, Orange County, and San Diego. So a vast alumni network in California. But yeah, just kind of a little bit more about kind of what we've been doing over here in the last, we are a newer business school too, I will say, like kind of looking in California when you kind of have, USC, UCLA, we are a newer business school, not that new, but definitely very mighty alumni network. And yeah, we've grown significantly. So a little bit about us.
Great, thank you. Jennifer, what about your school, Darla Moore School of Business?
That's right. Thanks, John. And I love hearing, the change agent sentiment come out, because I really, at the heart of the MBA, I think that's what we get to do. At the Darla Moore School, our history is we're over 100 years old. We're the first business school in the country that was named after a woman. So at the heart of change, we also are really focusing on that, to your point of diversity and inclusion and corporate social responsibility. We hope to open more doors. What we're known for, John mentioned international business. So back in the 70s, I think both the government of South Carolina, the state, and the business school leaders and the university leaders came together and really saw an advantage of not just moving South Carolina forward, but helping many of the multinational enterprises and companies that are in South Carolina. Some of the biggest names and global 50 companies have their manufacturing headquarters here. And they focused on how we could deliver business education and an MBA program that helps support those firms and students going abroad to remote places of the world to help change. And we still till today in all of our grad programs, and especially the international MBA that consistently is ranked in that #1 spot, deliver our curriculum and focus on activities and content so that our students are the ones that will raise their hand and say, yes, I'll take that assignment that sounds crazy and off the board, because they've experienced in immersion, they've been put over the coals in ways that other business schools don't. We force them, and they love this piece. So I say force, but they go abroad and we force them to participate in abroad and immersion programs that we don't help set up. So it creates sometimes anxiety and sometimes an environment of self-sufficiency that you may not get in other places and immersions when everything is calendared out for you. And we'll keep that at our core as a core experience. We're a flagship school as well, so we do get advantage of being the flagship of the state of South Carolina.
Great. Julie, Simon Business School at the University of Rochester. What's your mission, values, history?
Thanks, John. I love hearing about all of the schools. It's wonderful. So Simon Business School is located in Rochester, New York, on the western side of the state. Actually, we're only about an hour from Buffalo, so we're between Buffalo and Syracuse. Go Buffalo Bills. I can finally say that after many, many years of being a diehard, loyal fan. Very excited about my Bills. University of Rochester is over 150 years old, and Simon Business School is over 60 years old. Our focus as a school is to develop business leaders who have clarity about business as well as themselves. So we pride ourselves on being a top research institution, and our teaching is focused on analytics, as well as, our curriculum is an economics-based curriculum in full across all disciplines. We also have a very tight-knit community, so offering very personalized, unique support to every single individual student. So I would say that as specifically as that, because everyone is an individual, not a number. We're also one of the most diverse programs of any business school, and because of our strong commitment to analytics for a long time, so long before it was even popular, we were the first school to go with a STEM designation across all disciplines as well, including marketing. So that means that any student, and we actually did that initially to assist our international students at being very unique as they're going through the recruiting process in the US and being able to stay in the US for up to 3 years on their F1 visa and have multiple chances to go for a H1B visa. What we found is that so many of our students, including domestic students, loved that opportunity to have an additional credential beyond just the MBA. So it doesn't take any additional time or money to be able to get the STEM designation. So very excited about that.
So what I love about this group of schools is that each of you have a distinctive competence in a given area. Now, that's not to oversimplify what the schools are about, because of course, all the schools are international. All the schools promote ethical behavior and corporate decision-making. All the schools have analytics and are quant-based on some level, and all the schools are focused on digital transformation. But, as I sit here and listen to each of you, I think it's great because I think it's just cleanly differentiated. Transformation at UC Irvine, international global business perspective at South Carolina, the quantitative approach to management and decision-making at Simon, and then ethical decision-making at Notre Dame. Yes, an oversimplification, but it helps wrap people's heads around where you're coming from and where you're going and what you're really good at, and you put a stake in the ground on and basically said, no school's going to beat us on this particular thing. And I think that's fantastic. Obviously, those things are very differentiating and they're reflected in your MBA programs. But I wonder if you were to say, what sets your MBA program apart from others? And we're probably going to have a lot of overlap here, but maybe you can get into some specifics on this. What would it be? Jennifer, let's start with you.
Great. Yeah, and I'll go right back to that international immersion piece. We have the longest immersion, and it's required. You can't opt out. At least in US business schools, there isn't another program that takes that long of a period of time during your 2 years and requires you to go abroad. We are also one program that we can guarantee you language proficiency if you would like it. So our international business track, again, all international MBA students must do a track. They can choose global and go abroad to any of our partner locations. If they choose a language track, however, they'll go to a very specific partner and they will study language both on campus during their second year, fall of their second business school year. And then when they go abroad that spring second year, they are immersed in studying language from the native teachers there. And we are the only school in the country that is doing it that way. Probably for good reason. It's not the easiest program to deliver, but with partners, we have the most partners of any business school in the country as well internationally. So we get that done quite easily with all our friends across the world. So that would be the key piece embedded on top of a traditional 2-year MBA or the full business school experience. Internships required, just like most schools. We do have the ability to deliver international internships. And I know in some comparison to our competing institutions abroad, our students will choose us because we can still deliver that, and they'll stay stateside working with US multinationals, but getting to do internships for them in one of their locations abroad. And that makes us a little unique as well.
And what are some of the locations that you bring your students to for your immersions?
That's right. So we've had South Africa. We've Asia has not been active for the last few years. We're still waiting to see how they come out and their universities reopen in certain locations. France, Mexico, Spain, Germany, all of the EU opportunities. Ireland is one where we see a lot of tech companies from the US going in startups there. So that's been popular. The most popular, I get asked that question a lot in the last couple of years, has been Paris, France. So even through the pandemic, France was open and allowed students to travel. Great.
Maria, what differentiates the MBA program at Notre Dame?
Yeah, it's I'm so interested in this language immersion here. My mind is kind of thinking about like what that might look like. So I'll have to ask you more later. Yeah, for Notre Dame, if I were to say kind of what we promised to our students, it would be back to this values-based ethical leadership. We use a really interesting model called the tender, strong, and true leadership model, and it is absolutely aligned with Our Lady of Notre Dame. And so we think about how, as somebody who is going into the business practice, as somebody who has empathy, appreciation for others, patience and humility is part of the tender piece. The strong is really the courage to act, to be dedicated to something with your full commitment, to really lean in towards excellence and to really stand your ground in resiliency. And then the third, with the true, is really about that willingness to, be honest and candid, and at the same time have a ton of grow your self-awareness. So I think that model is really unique, and because it is aligned with our small Catholic C values, it really helps to bring the cohort together as we kick off the cycle. So I would say that's one. I think the other part of it is that we're in a very small community. So South Bend, Indiana, which is just 90 miles southeast of Chicago, about 35 miles away from Lake Michigan. There's about 300,000 people in the greater area, and the community at Notre Dame is really familial, I will say. It is obvious, you may have heard of the Notre Dame football team at some point. It's so, I think that community from the undergraduate level kind of filters into the community at the graduate level too. And so it really does kind of offer this space where people are incredibly big-hearted. They come in like with that servant and inclusive mindset, and they're willing to act on behalf of another in order to help accelerate somebody else. And so like examples that I have is, I did like a listening tour when I first got here, and there were 9 students that I talked to. They were all interested in investment banking, and you think about competition in business schools and vying for specific roles. And what I heard was that they were all sharing best practices and kind of teaming up to help each other. And I guess all 9 of them, got their investment banking internship. And then, they all were eventually offered roles in investment banking, but they wouldn't have or couldn't have done it in the same way without supporting each other. So that's like one of like many examples that we hear on campus about what it's like to be in a small community where people are really interested in helping one another. And it's almost unsettling if you're not coming from a community that's like that. People have to, I hear students talking about having to readjust when people actually stop them when they're walking down a pathway to say hello and are interested in learning how they're doing. I mean, that goes across like faculty, staff, and, other members of the community here. So I think those are really huge points here. I also want to make a statement about this experiential learning piece. Because we're such a small community and we're in the middle of, cornfields and soybean fields, there is this willingness of faculty and staff to really create some tailored immersions, as we call them. So we have business on the front lines, which is really about, finding ways and opportunities to help other organizations, whether they're public or private, in other countries like Tajikistan and Romania and Chile, Puerto Rico. I know that's in our country, but other places more globally. And then also within the South Bend community, creating case opportunities to work with these organizations. And then we have this opportunity for students to go into the Bay Area to get hands-on experience and learn from faculty there. We send students at times to New York if they're focused on finance. And so we're trying to do as much as we possibly can so that the students have as broad of a reach as possible. And it may also limit the time in the winter here, because the winter is a real thing in South Bend. And so I know, Julie, you could probably understand where I'm coming from. So yeah, so I just, I think those three things, it's really just the community, the leadership, and I would say the experiences that we provide for our students.
Great. Maria, thank you.
Yeah.
Julie, since the winter is similar in Rochester, why don't you go next?
Listen, I'm gonna address that right now. So I love our 4 seasons, and it is not snowy here 24/7 all year round. Okay, this is like 3 months out of the year that you just have to learn how to dress appropriately, and it's really not gonna kill anybody. In fact, it's gonna build character. That's what I say. So anyway, we'll move on from the weather, because I always tell everybody, don't choose your program based on weather. Oh my goodness. Yes, so I love hearing all about all of this. And Maria, I totally agree with you. I think, Simon is intentionally small. We call it right sized. So we intentionally want to be a smaller school, because that allows us to really foster very authentic relationships and that network of people that our students are friends for life. I mean, they're going to each other's weddings and celebrating the birth of children forever, and they're utilizing each other's resources throughout their career. And so I agree with you. It's very, very, it's not going to be a competitive environment. It's much more collaborative, and we like that. I can't even imagine being at a place where everyone is competing against one another. So we think that that's pretty important as well. We have international immersions. A student can do up to 4 of those throughout the 2 years of the program. We're one of the few schools that also has the opportunity to take up to 4 electives in the first year of the program as well, which helps them as they navigate, those interviews in the career that they may want to go into, especially if they're trying to be a career switcher. But also it helps them in their internship to solidify that offer, hopefully if they want it. We have an opportunity to, through that experiential learning that we're talking about, we have what's called Simon Vision Consulting, which is working with local and regional companies. So it's similar to maybe pro bono work that Simon students are providing to these companies, sometimes startup companies or smaller companies that can't afford to hire the large consultants. And it's also a way for a student to kind of handpick the project that they want, to build their skills, to add it to their resume, to work directly with the companies. So that's amazing. We have, besides STEM, I won't harp on that, but we are one of the top programs for women. We've been ranked #1 for women in the U.S. in pay gap percentage. Yes, yay. That's important. And so we focus on that, but we're also one of the top business schools for diversity. So that's something I'm particularly incredibly proud of. I think, being ranked for the past 3 years, top 2, for the first 2 years, we were #1, and that's important. I think in that ranking is historically underrepresented U.S. minority students. So we are doing a lot in terms of helping, to change the look of the C-suite, and hopefully in the future, and to get more representation for women, as well as historically underrepresented minorities in business, and frankly, students from all across the world. So I love that. That's a huge commitment of what we're all about. And we focus on celebrating people from around the world and different cultures. And in fact, today we're celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. They had I'm not going to say this correctly, cafecito. That's what we did. Okay, so we did that today. And then that's, just learning about different cultures.
You do.
Sorry? Did I do okay, Maria?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know. Well, anyway, that's what we did. I learned a lot today. I love it. And so these are things that are incredibly important to me and to the school. We're helping to battle systemic racism in the US, and just having lots of those types of difficult conversations, really, and learning, because we also have students from across the world who have not really been introduced to what we have faced in the US. So that's an important topic of conversation, because it's going to be important to them as they navigate their careers and lead their teams in the US.
Yeah, and Julie, that's a good point. Yesterday, I was involved in moderating a panel on diversity and inclusion. And it's interesting how the Europeans define diversity versus the Americans. Race doesn't even enter the equation in Europe. It's gender and cultural
Yes.
diversity. So it's a very definite separation between how one looks at diversity in Europe versus U.S. business schools.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Lindsay, UC Irvine, how do
Yes.
you differentiate the MBA?
Well, anytime anyone wants to come to sunny California, please
Oh boy, you're playing
reach
the weather card.
reach out. When it's winter and you're really feeling like, oh man, please, Newport Beach is 15 minutes away from where we are. So please.
I know, shorts and sandals under palm trees in January and February.
That is true. Yes, that can be very true. But kind of a lot of what you guys have talked about. I mean, for us, culture is huge. Like, I think it is definitely one of our, biggest wins as a school. We are a small class size, and what that does is create this culture, this family that we call it. We call it the Mirage family. And students really get, just such high touch personalization. And that starts from, maybe reaching out to one of our ambassadors when they're even thinking about, applying to the program, kind of becoming a student, and then working with our career center, and just the level of support they provide our students, because they are a smaller class size and they can really have, one-on-one conversations with them. They really get to know them really, really well. They know what what they want to do, what, companies are looking for, just the advising piece that they offer our students. I've heard it time and time again, just how amazing, they are, and just how, patient and helpful, and just want to support them in any way that they can. And so they really start working with our students in the summer before they even show up. They are working with the career team, kind of getting to know them, getting to know, more about kind of really basic things that they're going to need when they kind of start the program. Resume, LinkedIn profile. Those are really basic things, but when you're doing full-time MBA, week one, you're already looking for internships. And so they really take that approach of kind of prepping students on the front end to really help them be successful. And that continues throughout the program. They help them with, mock interviewing. They do, maybe they get an offer. They'll help negotiate the offer for them. They are just such a huge champion for our students. So yeah, for me, it's definitely culture, but with that comes just that attention that you're going to get from faculty, career, your peers. They really get to know one another so well that they are invested in each other's success. And so for me, I love that culture. And I think it's definitely something that drew me to UC Irvine. And so I've seen it time and time again. And I think, and then when they become an alum, just how willing they are when you reach out and you say, hey, I need help with this event. Yes, tell me where I need to be. I'll be there to help. And so I think that's been their experience. They want to give back to the program that gave to them. And so for me, yeah, it definitely has to be that kind of culture that we create at the school and that family.
And it's worth pointing out that all four schools here, these are not MBA factories. Each school has a rather small, intimate cohort of people who bond deeply together through the 2-year experience, which leads me to ask each of you, what's the size of your incoming cohort? And what does it look like? What's that class profile in terms of gender, international representation, industry backgrounds, and years of work experience? Jennifer, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I can first talk about our cohort size. Indeed, we're small. We'll take 60 maximum in a year. The target I'm given is always 50 to 60. So we're looking not necessarily to completely fill. I think like most of us, we want the right students in the program. Test scores and the quantitative background are really important. Overall, We're in the mid 600s on the average GMAT. I think like everyone else, we're seeing a lot of GRE scores coming in and requests for waivers. So we consider those. And we're, especially post-pandemic, pretty flexible in someone submitting to us evidence of the ability to handle the quantitative work. Our quantitative core, we are a summer start program. So why we will focus heavily on the quant skills. So they take 3 classes immediately immersed, all quantitative, and it's kind of a make or break. You get past that summer, then you get the fun international stuff. So we're looking for that. And I would back end it by the interview is rated. You have to get the most number of points from your interview, and the personality and the interpersonal skills and the ability to show some of what we've all talked about, that they can be part of a close-knit group and very open-minded for all peoples because of how global we are.
And what's the gender split in your latest cohort?
We are almost 50-50. We're at 48% women.
Great.
So we're fortunate there. Again, I'll relate that to being the flagship state school. We're lucky in that sense of
And
being.
I know in the contingent at most US, the international contingent at most business schools in US has gone up in this last year. What's yours?
We are at 20%. Highest programs or countries represented right now happen to be some African countries. So we have sister cities in Ghana and Nigeria for the state of South Carolina that we get an advantage to feed in. And of course, we have some great students from many Indian universities that come through, Asian universities, and European because of our European business school partners.
Great. Maria, what's your latest class profile look like?
Yeah, it's exciting to share in some aspects of the class profile because we've been working really hard as an evolving community, especially when it relates to what Julie was talking about, our true desire and wish for a broader global perspective and more diverse backgrounds. I think speaking, race, gender, and many of the other visible and invisible areas of diversity as well. So for the 2 year, so we have 2 programs. We have a 2-year program and then we have a 1-year program. So I'll speak primarily to the 2-year program. We have 96 students. That class size is a little bit smaller than we've had in the past. Our target is usually around a class of about 120. And then we had not gender parity yet, though working towards it, 30% women in the class with about 30% international candidates as well. Where we've really seen some outstanding growth is through a couple of partnerships that we've identified with the eldest Black fraternity in the country, the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, and also another group that's based here in Indiana through Marian University called Diversity and Leadership, which primarily helps us to attract candidates who are seeking more of the executive MBA, although it does help kind of with the broader, I think, signaling out and also referrals to our program. So we have had, we are now at 17% underrepresented minorities, US minorities, but this is up from 7%. And historically, it's, been quite low. Yeah, so we're making moves. But I think, one of the biggest things that I'll say about the class is that, when it comes down to kind of the look and feel of the candidates, again, these are people who want to really become change agents and come in with that inclusive mindset, regardless of where they're coming from, right? And so I think that is something that is really inherent in the nature of our community. I think I mentioned that earlier. I would say there's also some differentiation between our 2-year cohort and also the 1-year program. So the 1-year program is really for those who really want to accelerate. They don't intend to create any pivots. That class is usually somewhere between like 50 and 60 candidates altogether. And they start in the summer too. And it's kind of like drinking from the fire hose for 6 weeks of getting tons of content. And then they join the 2nd year class, join the 2nd years. So that is the cohort, but we're really deeply excited about the students who we have on campus this year and look forward as the cycle kicks off again, a month ago. So.
And it's Simon, your latest cohort?
Yes, our most recent cohort just started in July, so we start in July as well. And it was 100, it's 110 students and broken up into 2 different cohorts so that the class sizes are actually smaller. So the core classes are really no more than about 60 students, and then the elective courses can be as small as 25 students. This cohort, or this entire class, I'm so excited, represented by 28 countries. So 46% international, 42% women. So Jennifer, congratulations to you. We're striving to get up there to, you know, as close to 50% as possible. And then 25% of all of those students are historically underrepresented minority students, and 46% of the domestic students are historically underrepresented students. So very proud of that. Average GPA is about 3.48. Average GMAT is 677. Average GRE is 317. And we also have an opportunity for waivers for those that qualify based on a multitude of different assessment aspects. So,
And I'm going to assume that Notre Dame also has waivers, and so does UC Irvine, right?
good.
Okay, good. So Lindsay, your latest class profile.
Yeah,
We know the number, but we don't know much else.
Well, we're again in that 50 to 60 range, right? That's kind of where we like to stay one cohort. You know, we are at 40% female this year, so that was a really great number. And we were at 22% underrepresented minorities. So I think that has definitely increased, which we're super proud of. Just a lot of different partnerships that we've created at the school, and just being able to provide those students the resources, I think has really been a great thing for us. With years work experience, I mean, we're almost to 6 years is our average. So again, coming in with really strong backgrounds for our MBA students. We represent 10, there's 10 countries represented. So again, another number that has increased. And our class is around 42% international. So we always stay kind of in that space for international students. Average GMAT 670, and then our average GRE is 315. As you said, we are offering waivers. We have offered those for the last 2 years. But yeah, just a really dynamic class. Like, I'm really happy with kind of the backgrounds that are represented. It's interesting to see new industries come in, you know, as those non-traditional, which we love. So we've seen a lot of kind of new industries enter, which we are really proud of, kind of having a really diverse student body. So everybody's going to be able to learn from everybody, we hope. And yeah, I'm really, really excited about the class this year.
So since everyone is offering waivers, and I know the majority of the top schools are in fact in that position, if they're not test optional, I wonder what do you do? How do you evaluate a candidate in the absence of a standardized test score? Now, I'm thinking that, look, if they have an undergraduate degree in engineering, you can be pretty assured that the quant's not going to be a problem. If they have quant work in their undergraduate transcript, same thing. If they're doing quantitative work or analytical work in their job, that's another thing. But I'm imagining that you might put more reliance on that transcript than the GPA in the absence of a standardized test. Am I right, Jennifer?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll go right in that transcript and circle then what kind of statistics classes did they have? Did they do research methods, and at what level? And then our interviewers will actually ask detailed questions about, well, tell me a little more. Do you use spreadsheets on your job? What kind of functions do you do with those spreadsheets? Kind of get that idea of test lacking. What is that telling us? But do they still have the ability to make data-driven decisions and manage the quant side of the classes?
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I'm sure that's universal. What's your general advice for someone about taking a standardized test, Maria?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think for people who feel incredibly confident in the time that they have to prepare, so it's going to be individualized, right? But for those who feel like they have the time to prepare and would like to take a test, we encourage that, because it also can sometimes, and I don't know how others do it, but it might also lead to further fellowship or scholarship opportunities. so that are merit-based. So we try to encourage that where we can. But we know what the research says about standardized test scores and their efficacy at really showing outcomes and student success long term. So when we think about test scores overall, we're thinking about, I think we're evaluating because we want students to be successful at the end of the day. So, we do our best to provide candidates who meet kind of on a holistic mapping or their evaluation goes through, and we want them to be a candidate here. We are ready to help better prepare them for these courses. So if they're admitted without a test, and we think that they can do the work, they might just need some more preparation, we'll offer them some additional courses prior to the start of classes. So I think that's, so I guess to bottom line it, John, I would just say, take a test if you want to be considered for merit fellowship at the highest level. But, also if you do not want to, there's still funding available for you as well. But we also want to make sure that you are absolutely prepared and ready to take on the program. So.
Yeah, and some people would be advantaged by taking the test. For one thing, if you're doing the prep work that you should for sitting for a standardized test, it kind of helps prepare you for the business school experience. So that's one asset. The other thing is if you have a lower GPA for whatever reason, personal reason, or maybe you weren't mature when you first went to college and your first year or two, you suffered a bit, so your overall GPA is low, or you didn't take, demanding math, science, engineering, quantitative courses, you want to shore up your application with a GMAT or a GRE score for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you.
Now, I'm going to ask you a tricky question, all of you. Let's see how you answer it. What's the trickiest part of your application process? Lindsay? Trickiest part?
Trickiest part, following directions, answering.
Right.
We have a prompt on essays, and, do your research, answer those prompts. Don't tell me what I think you want me to hear. I want to hear an authentic answer about you, about what you're looking to do, about your why you want to join our program. I think, some students might try to, kind of take things off the website, which is important 100%, but I want to know more about the individual. And so for us, we have one of our essays is a video essay, and it's a really open prompt. Basically, introduce yourself to the admissions committee. Super simple prompt. So introduce yourself to us, tell us a little bit about you, something that I wouldn't know by kind of reading an application. And so, that again, I think goes back to what I've already said about the culture and the fit and who we're looking for. Those are all really important things for us being a small class size. But, I think that's the tricky part. Somebody might want to tell you what you want to hear, but I want to know the more authentic, story behind the why. I think everybody has a why at looking. Why are they doing an MBA? There is a why behind it. Are we the right school to help you? How do we fit into your goals? What does that look like? So be authentic. I think it's super important.
Yeah, I think that's advice and insight that everyone would share here. Julie, do you have a tricky part of your application process?
Well, honestly, I actually agree with everything Lindsay said. That was a perfect answer. I think it's true. I feel like being genuine and telling us your story we love that. But let's go back to the fact that there's sometimes that people don't read their essays. And so there's lots of grammatical errors. There's sometimes the wrong business school name in there, which is terrible. That'll get you, denied immediately. So don't use the same essay for multiple schools. Be thoughtful about this process. There's nothing worse than seeing an application come through for a person that's talking about, their career goals, but their reasons for applying to the business school, and they don't relate to our school at all. So be mindful of where our students place, what are the industries that we do well in? Don't come in wanting to do something that it makes no sense. And so I think I can speak for all business schools when I say, just be thoughtful. We don't want you to be applying to 10 business schools and you're being very genuine, or not genuine, but generic as you're going through the process. Be thoughtful about this process.
Yeah, really good advice. And Jennifer, I'm assuming that given the slant, the focus of your program, it would be important for a candidate to show demonstrated interest in basically globalization and international travel, maybe international work experience, that kind of thing, right?
Yes, exactly. And we ask that prompt, show us your, not just your experience abroad, because it's more than I have gone on a cruise. It's your actual thoughtfulness about, I've been to these countries and I understand that it will be different, and you can't make a decision without remembering it's different. People have different mindsets because of where they've been. So, yep.
Okay, there's really important advice there. A cruise doesn't count.
It's not.
Hey, it's been a real pleasure to spend this time with all of you. I really enjoyed it. I hope that everyone who's watching has gotten a really good taste of what each school is all about, what it values, where it's coming from, how it's differentiated in the marketplace. A lot of people think the MBA is a commoditized product. You four demonstrate that it certainly is not. So thank you for doing that. Maria, Julie, Jennifer, and Lindsay, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
And for all of you out there, step number one, each of these schools have great websites. Go to the websites, read exactly what you're being told, follow the application advice and process thoroughly, answer the questions, answer the prompts that are being asked. Look at the employment reports, because they're very revealing and helpful in terms of what the career outcomes are for the students. And if you can see yourself in the stats, and you can see yourself in that school, I would encourage you also to pay a personal visit to campus if you can, and at least speak to a student ambassador. Thank you very much for watching. This is John Byrne with Poets&Quants.